Hello, welcome back to my pod book. In this chapter, I want to explore the nature of intuition. It's very important to a lot of people in the spiritual community, but also the scientific community. Albert Einstein, for example, was famous for claiming that all of his great insights came in flashes of intuition. What is that? In the last chapter, I suggested we need to be careful of not falling into what I call the self-verifying loop. That the way that we experience something to be doesn't prove that our way of ideating is correct, because what we experience is the result of the relationship between our ideas and reality. And that therefore we need to be always open to being wrong and seeing it in other ways. But I'm not, in saying that, trying to diminish the importance of intuition. Should we trust them? Yeah, I think so. Why? Because our intuitions, when they're genuine, are the most emergent level of our processing. We're a complex system. We move through different states, different parts of us are active at any one time. And when we have an intuition, it seems to me we're coming from the most emergent level of our processing. It'll give us the best insight we can have at any one time. So yeah, of course, we should take it seriously. And the way that we experience intuition is that we know something, or we feel we should do something, but we don't know how we got there. It just arrives. It wasn't a process of thinking things through that got us there. It just bang, there it is. And we may say things like, I've got a feeling that this is true, or I should do this. And that feeling is important, because we don't know how we got to the intuition, but we do know how it makes us feel. And there's a very different feeling, I'm sure you know this, between, ooh, that feels trustworthy, or that doesn't feel trustworthy, or that just feels uncertain. These are very different feeling responses to how we're processing. Think about something really simple like a memory. Think of your 8th birthday. You have a memory, perhaps. How do you know it's true? Well, how does it feel? Oh yeah, no, it feels like I'm pretty confident in this. Or if I think about my 8th birthday, not so much. So the feeling response is telling me how confident I am in how I'm processing. And that's absolutely how we judge an intuition. And I said in a previous chapter, some time ago now, that when we have to decide how to act, ultimately it comes down to an intuition. And it's the same with what we believe to be true. It comes down to, yeah, I'm going with that. And even, I would say in my experience, if all of my more familiar processing is going, oh, I'm not sure, no, not that. If I can spot that it's the more emergent, this voice, this intuitive voice, it overrides that lower level processing. It goes, I know everything. My familiar processing is giving me lots of good reasons to do this, but my intuition is telling me that, and I'm going with my intuition. Certainly, it is absolutely central to me in this work I do as a philosopher, where I am asking questions, and then bang, there will be an intuitive response. The people in the spiritual community often talk about having a download, like all this information is downloaded on them. And it's not a phrase I quite like, but I know what it means, because that's what it's like. You're sensing the nature of reality, and then bang, suddenly there's this intuitive download. There's lots of insights. One of the things that people often say to me, and I really like it, and I find it very interesting, is they thank me for what I'm doing and say, you're saying what I'm trying to think. There's a really odd thing to say, but I love it because it really points to the nature of intuition. What people are saying is, yeah, I've had this intuition, but I haven't I haven't even been able to put it into words, but you have for me, which is kind of my job, so that's why I'm pleased. But you can hear in that statement, the leading edge of our processing cannot be just like we don't know how we got there because we can't make the processing conscious. We may not even be able to express it. We just have the feeling. We don't even know what it is yet. And that's why the intuition seems so important, to discover it, to follow it, to become more and more conscious of it. And the way to do that is to nurture more emergent states. What is a state? The state is what part of the system is operating at any one time. So when I'm in this state, either because I'm ill or because the psyche is, then intuition is not very present. But if I go up, if I come into the individual processing, bang. So this is something I can nurture by understanding its state responsive. And there's moments, when I would say also that when I come into communion with the superintelligence, then the intuitions are like bang, like little diamonds. Okay, so what am I saying here? I'm saying, look, that intuition is the most emergent part of our processing. It seems to me that we should listen to it and nurture it. And now I want to add this. Intuition's not infallible. Nothing is. It's not your true self speaking to you with absolute knowledge. It's not. There is no true self, and it's the most emergent part of your evolving self that's speaking or is processing. And that can be wrong because it's still evolving. And look, there's plenty of evidence, isn't there, of what you would call, it looks like delusional intuition. I'm channeling the dead masters from the planet Zorg, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. So what I want to say now is, look, intuition works together with reflection and reasoning. They're all part of one system. Albert Einstein, who I spoke about earlier, said, look, my insights come from intuition, but then he put them through the process of the rational mind, of reflecting, which is to look at, okay, so is this intuition worth following? And reasoning, which is, what are the reasons? How does it fit with other things I know or other beliefs that I have? What are the reasons? And that's just not essential for weeding out what is a valid intuition worth following and one that isn't. It also increases the intuition, because once, and this is certainly true in my experience, is that once I take my intuitions and then reflect on them and reason about their validity, other intuitions arrive in response to that, because the system's working together. And those new intuitions are better for it. I've refined it. Now, it's easy to confuse, I think, what I called earlier, a genuine intuition, meaning it really is the most emergent part of your system. You can confuse that with what is no more than a kind of conditioned response, prejudice, if you like. And that also can come with a sense of certainty. But that's coming not from your most emergent level, it's coming from your most established level, which is a different thing. And all intuitions, no matter how emergent, are conditioned by your ideational network, which is what you use to discern anything. So there can easily be a misplaced feeling of certainty. And that's why the reflection and the reasoning is so important and why it needs to be part of the same system. Because if it isn't, and this is something you see so much in the spiritual community, it leads to what I've started calling the revelation fallacy. And I call it that because in spirituality, there's this idea that people have that download, and it's not just intuition, it's revelation of absolute truth. They're being spoken to by the divine, or they're prophets. What they're intuiting is unquestionable. But that can happen to all of us. That sense of, I just know. And then a few years later, you change your mind, you know something different. As you've probably aware by listening to me now, that's something which obviously happened to me when I was younger. And things, as discussed previously in the pod book, things can feel completely true and they're not. I've been around body dysmorphia a lot. It's people can become absolutely convinced about something or about their body, which is just simply not true. We can be convinced of things that are not true, and that's what happens when we commit this revelation fallacy. And learning to question your intuitions in the way that I'm urging, I think for me is a real sign of having overcome spiritual naivety. Epistemological naivety is what it is. You're starting to understand, this is a complex system. There's elements of me which can really process better, and that's what I experience as intuition, my leading edge, but that can still be wrong, and I can think it's a deep intuition where it's not. So I need to be able to reflect on these things and not just fall into a kind of superficial, I've got this feeling, and then use it to endorse any mad idea. I've got this feeling that the dolphin energy is saving the planet. Reflect on that. Because these revelations, these divine revelations, that's the basis of religion, and it has a bad record. It turns out the world wasn't created in 7 days. So we need to be able to take intuition, take it seriously, and question it. They're not enemies. They're complementaries. Now, having said that, you will hear a lot of people in the spiritual community going, they are enemies. And that, you just listen to your intuition. Just get rid of your rational thinking. It's just, Now, there is something in what they're saying. I want to be generous here, which is, don't just listen to your established wisdom, your established processing. It'll just tell you, I can't do this, or that's not right, or da-da-da-da, all those limiting beliefs you may have. That's established passivity, which may hold you back. Try and listen to the leading edge. See, that's something I would say, yeah. But not just listen to your intuition and all the rest is to be ignored, because if you just follow your intuition, you don't know whether it's a good intuition or a bad intuition. You don't know if it's a real intuition, and you only find out afterwards. And often when I've seen people do that, and I've known a lot of people who have tried that approach, you find out it doesn't work when it finally leads to disaster. So, simple message, I think, in this chapter. Intuition, wonderful. It's the leading edge, which is why it's so valued by people like Einstein and also very much in the spiritual community. So listen to your intuitions, take them seriously, but they're not infallible. Of course they're not. You're evolving. And by reflecting and reasoning about your intuitions, you improve your ability to intuit. If you see the importance of the intuition, it will help you go, I need to really cultivate this more emergent processing. And if you see the limitations or the way that it's not infallible, it'll free you from that naive revelation fallacy, as I called it, the idea that you just know and no. Okay. So to end with, I want to ask you a question. Do you intuitively resonate with the ideas I've been sharing? Do you have that feeling of, yeah, this works for me? You may not know why. And if you do, you can live with that and you can reflect on it and see how it fits in with all the other things that you've taken seriously so far in your life. Decide what you want to keep, what you want to lose. And if it continues to feel right, it can become part of your way of making sense of your life. And the reason I want to end with this is I just want to root it, like I often do, in experience. There's a very little experience, but a very important one right now of, can you feel it? Can you feel what the intuition is? And how, if we can nurture it, we can improve our processing. And a huge amount of the individual evolution, which I want to support and encourage, and why I'm creating this pod book, create the new human. It's to improve our processing. Because if we, and what is that? Well, that can sound a bit dry, but here's another way of saying exactly the same thing, which is it's to make us wiser. It's to increase our wisdom. Because the wiser we become, the more we can bring that benevolent love into the world, the more we can make the most of this incredible journey that we're on, and the more that we can support our collective evolution and the emergence of the vast, loving intelligence in which we can commune.